Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF, joined by my main man, Al Calo. I'm excited. You know, he's been doing a lot of great stuff in the Discord, a lot of great stuff with his Substacks. I'm excited to really break down these sophomore slumps and breakout candidates with you. Al, when you look at the 2024 class, this class, I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look at this as one of the most elite quarterback classes, if not the best quarterback class of all time. We're talking about a wide receiver core that has multiple elite assets. Running backs haven't quite popped off. We have the dynasty, tight end one from this class. If you rebuilt like we talked about last year and you invest in this 24 class, you got to be feeling good.
Yeah, it's almost like insane how much this one class changed the whole landscape of Dynasty. We're going to just keep saying to buy these players. We're going to try to evaluate peak values throughout their early careers. And there's a lot of value to be had in these guys while they are pillars for our Dynasty teams.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows, you already have Jaden Daniels. We talk a lot about Caleb Williams and the quarterbacks. Everybody knows Malik Neighbors, guys that popped off. The purpose of today's show is Al and I are going to help you with those guys that didn't quite break out year one. Those guys that we're going to determine if they're going to have a sophomore breakout or they're going to continue in that slump. And when it comes to dynasty value, that's huge, right? If they didn't pop off year one, now all of a sudden we're betting on, okay, year two, they have to do it, because if it doesn't happen after year two, it dips off hard. The value dips, everything dips. So we're here to break that down. The first guy that we're going to do it with, Snoog and I cover it all the time. One of our favorite buys in Dynasty right now is Marvin Harrison Jr. coming in at the Dynasty wide receiver 10 after a semi-promising rookie season. Like everybody had him, right there with Malik Neighbors or above Malik Neighbors. Neighbors obviously broke records as a rookie. Marv had what we would say is a really solid year one, 62 receptions, 885 yards, 8 touchdowns. Al, are you buying or are you selling a breakout for Marvin Harrison Jr. in 2025?
I'm definitely going to lean towards the buy side for a breakout. One of the most interesting things that happened all offseason in the NFL was, or at least in Dynasty for me, was the Cardinals just completely running it back on offense. I don't know really what the thought process is to make like actually zero changes when it comes to their offense. But basically the way that I'm leaning with that is that they know they misused Marvin Harrison a bit. They know they need to get him easier targets, and they know that they kind of got to funnel the offense through him a little bit more rather than just feeding Trey McBride kind of underneath type targets. So I believe just basically from like an NFL standpoint and like a philosophy standpoint, this coaching staff definitely just doesn't have much of a choice but to use Marvin Harrison differently and kind of maximize his strengths that we saw coming out.
Yeah, and I mean, he is someone that in college at Ohio State was phenomenal. It is someone that we see a ton of upside. We see a ton of potential. He had that 3 touchdown game in week 2 after a lot of people were selling early. I think there's a lot to like with Marvin Harrison Jr. I also worry a little bit about the usage. Trey McBride seems to be the clear target favorite for Kyler Murray. In order for Marv to really ascend, that's going to have to change. Right now, he's the dynasty wide receiver 10, which I think is about what you would be expecting right now. The other guys in that area that you're looking at, if you're in a startup, Marvin Harrison Jr. goes right at the same spot as Bo Nix, Ladd McConkey, Devon Achane, CJ Stroud. So you're giving up a really nice player there. You want to make sure that you're getting elite usage back, a player that is going to be a cornerstone, because you're paying top dollar for a Marvin Harrison Jr., So let's take a look at some of the actual trades that we have here on Dynasty Data Lab, which is what we do. Like we try to make things as actionable as possible. We're not trying to just say, hey, blindly go buy Marvin Harrison or blindly sell Marvin Harrison. We are going to give you trades that for us are actionable, trades that, Al and I would make on our own. So let's take a look at one of the first ones here. I actually kind of like this one. So you got this is a PPR, 6-point touchdowns, tight end premium, so 0.5, Marvin Harrison Jr., and an early to mid 26 first or Brock Bowers.
I'm going to go Brock Bowers here. I just think obviously in a startup, we're talking about a first round pick through and through. Really like what we're trying to do. There's a little or there's a lot of projection that we're doing when it comes to Marvin Harrison, but you have a lot of stability when it comes to Brock Bowers, especially what the competition's looking like in year 2 for him, the quarterback upgrade. The arrow is like guaranteed to be pointing up for Brock Bowers, where we're projecting a bit more for Marv.
Absolutely. I'm with you there on that one. The next one is quite interesting. We're looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. on one side. The other side is Brandon Ayuk, a 26th third, and we're going to call it a random 27 first. Now, a lot of times, and I say this every single show, and people are like, Dad, chill. 27 first, everyone wants to project them all as early, or because that's where the elite assets are. And then everybody wants to go with mid. We're going random here. When I say random, I'm thinking it's late. I want to treat it like it's mid to late, not mid to early. If I'm using it, like if I'm trading mine, sure as heck, I'm going to treat it like it's mid to early. If I'm buying it, I'm going to treat it like it's mid to late. So we'll call this one random. Random first, Ayuk in a third, or Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, so I'll take Marv here. These are where I know a lot of people, they really want those 27 firsts, and for a good reason. But if I'm contending one, or if two, I'm projected to contend next year or in 27, then this is where I'm willing to sell relatively random 27 firsts. And I think getting a top 10 asset right now at the wide receiver position is worth giving up that first. Brandon Ayuk, I do like right now, but like I'm going to continue to say, we're projecting his role and now coming off of injury. So I think this is a good trade that I like to make in a tier up.
Two more here, 1-for-1, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Amarion Hampton. There's no PPC, so it's just standard PPR. Marv or Amarion Hampton. I want to look at it from two lenses. One, from your trade itself, and then two, if you're in a startup, who you going with?
From the trade itself, I actually do lean Amarian Hampton here. I think like long term, it's tough to get one of these stable running backs. And I just think he landed at the most perfect spot where you're not going to see like a huge value dip on a couple of guys that we might talk about today, where like there's a path for him to be very, very good in year 1, but I think he's pretty stabilized going forward. So I will take a Martin Hampton just to try to get one of those elite running backs here. Definitely a close trade, and I actually like don't mind it either way. Not to sound like a cop out, but I do lean Amari and Hampton here.
And then the last one here I wanted to talk about, because you and I, before we jumped on the show, we were looking at Dynasty Data Lab, looking at who we roster the most. My largest roster percentage is Josh Allen. One of yours was Chris Olave. So we got Chris Olave and a mid 26 first, or Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm still taking Marv here. I think it's like we said, there's too much change going on in New Orleans for me to value Chris Olave as someone that I can get the ceiling that I'm going to get out of Marvin Harrison right now. So I think a mid 26 first on top is about the market.
Yeah, I'm there with you. The next guy from me is Rome Odunze. So this is like that scene in The Office where Michael Scott talks about getting his vasectomy and then getting it redone. It's snip, snap, snip, snap. I keep going back and forth, right? Rome was a buy before they drafted Loveland and Burden. And then, he was a sell after that. Now for me, he's a buy again, because you see Burden beat up at camp and you see a lot of things. The writing on the wall is a guy like Rome Odunze, who was so hyper productive in college, going top 10 in the NFL draft, had a semi-promising rookie season, 54 receptions, 734 yards, 3 touchdowns, again, as the number 3 in Chicago. So here's the interesting thing that I really want to point out to you guys is in 2023, we were talking about the same scenario with Jackson Smith and Jigba. His offensive coordinator was Shane Waldron. He was the third guy in line behind Metcalf and Lockett. 63 receptions, 628, and 4 touchdowns. And what did JSN do last year? Blew up, and absolutely dominated, over 100 receptions. You talk about Rome, same situation. He's the third wide receiver in a Shane Waldron system, and he posts almost identical type numbers, and slightly different. But for the most part, we're talking about the guy that's the wide receiver 3. Keenan Allen's gone. I know they brought in a couple of rookies, but the path to stardom for Rome Odunze is there. A lot of rumors say that DJ Moore is not well liked by the offensive system. Whoever is in Ben Johnson's Amon-Ra St. Brown type role is going to eat. DJ Moore's 28 years old. Could that be DJ Moore? I think he could have a really nice 2025. What everybody keeps saying is it this guy? Is it that guy? The answer's both for this year. I think both these guys could eat. I think both of them could put up really solid numbers. And then when you're talking about in 2026, Rome's going to be the guy. I think no doubt in my mind, either DJ Moore starts to decline a little bit or Rome really ascends. And I love, 48% of his air yards were uncatchable. That was second worst last year. Ben Johnson is someone that unlocks wide receivers. He runs multiple different scenarios. I like it. Let's break down some trades here because I think you're going to see Rome Odunze. Like I said, we just did Smash Accept 20. I think he fell all the way to round 6, if I believe, which is absolute value because the guys that he's going in that same range, it actually kind of blew my mind. Is he went at the end of round 5 in the same spots as Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Xavier Worthy, and I like those players. But Rome Odunze's ceiling is a top 3 startup pick, maybe even top 2. Like if we saw him go to the Chargers last year, I think we'd be talking about him in that same light that we do as Ladd McConkey, maybe more, because I think overall talent, he's more talented. He's just that good.
I agree with you. And I think, projecting Rome is really just something that I wrote about actually recently is the offensive line was so bad that the way that they wanted to use him, it just didn't matriculate into consistency, especially when you have a rookie quarterback as well. It really hinders the development of both types of players. So huge overhaul there. And I think his value is only going to be on the rise after this year. So a couple of these trades definitely forecast that. Like one that you can see here that stands out to me is, let's call it a mid to late 27 first for Rome Odunze straight up.
Yeah, as talent wise, I mean, we all talk about Jeremiah Smith and we talk about Ryan Williamson and Cam Coleman, and there's a lot of guys in that class. But if you put him in that class, he's wide receiver 4 at worst. So I mean, I think there's TJ Moore in that class too. It's a loaded class, but when you look at prospect for prospect, and this might be a hot take, but you see what he actually did at Washington with his advanced route running, one of the best separators there were from Matt Harmon's reception perception, tremendous body control, one of the top, if not the top guy when it came to contested catches, fluid changing of directions, insane on those 50-50 balls. Like you could argue that he would be up there with Ryan Williams if you're talking about the exact same age at the exact same time. I think Rome Odunze is worth maybe the 105 in 2027, but most people would value him as a late 2027 first. So if you can do that and maybe even squeak in a little bit extra because everybody's so hyped about those 2027s.
Yeah, I think he can actually ascend past that value. That's why I'm willing 100%. To pay a price like that. This one's pretty interesting here when you throw like a quarterback tier up is what people would consider it. So it's Brock Purdy, Rome Odunze, Michael Pittman for Mahomes and Strange. So basically the way I'm looking at it is kind of Strange and Pittman are a little bit of a value when it's tight end premium cancel. So Purdy and Odunze to get you to Mahomes.
That's really close. Yeah, because I really like Brock Purdy more than most people, and I'm slightly off Patrick Mahomes more so than most people. I mean, I think I would want a little bit more. Like I would take the Strange and Pittman out and ask for a 27-1-2 swap yet because Mahomes still carries that kind of value in most leagues. Mahomes, as weird as it says, I mean, he was quarterback 11, is very polarizing. I've seen him go as early as 110 in startups. I've seen him go as late at 207, so it's like, I think the depressed value of Rome, I think it would be Purdy, Rome in a 26 or 27 first for Mahomes in a 26 or 27 second. And I think I'd be fine with that one, but I don't think you have to make that move right now.
Yeah. He went 209 in a recent startup that I did, but
That's
just
wild.
Overall, this is like the type of, like tier down that I like to do. Like you said, getting the first is definitely like the price ask, but getting a Purdy, because fantasy wise, he's going to be pretty similar to Mahomes. And then Odunze is like a type of player that I would want to target in that type of tier down as far as value wise. So I just do like that type of package when trading Mahomes or a player like him. And then you're seeing a lot of different like firsts. So like Odunze or Mark Andrews in a 26 first and tight end premium.
I like Andrews as a bounce back, but I still take Rome here in this situation. I feel like the guy that made this trade probably has multiple tight ends. You know, if you need a tight end, it's not a horrible trade, but I feel like that's the type of trade where you lose. You know, if Rome pops off, you're going to feel horrible. I mean, the other one I kind of like over there is Jaden Higgins in 2:26 seconds for Rome Odunze. I like Jaden Higgins. Nowhere near the same ceiling as Rome Odunze. Like Rome Odunze's ceiling is a top 12 dynasty wide receiver. I think he could get to that point if we in the next 2 years. You know, it's just a matter of he's perfect to insulate, right? Like that's what I like doing with him is trading, you know, I AJ Brown and getting Rome in a first. And I think that's feasible in today's market or someone in that range. I mean, I think last year at this time you were getting you were taking him before Ladd McConkey, but right now you could get Rome in a first for Ladd McConkey if you believe in that way. And that's really what's cool about a dynasty as opposed to a redraft is we're trying to make moves on guys we believe in. The next guy I want to see if you believe in here is Xavier Worthy. So Xavier Worthy, a little bit of a slow start while Rashee Rice was on the field, finishes the season with 59 receptions, 638 and 6. Really kind of popped off towards the end of the season there, as well as the playoff run. The interesting thing now is Kelsey's fully healthy. You know, he looks like he's trimmed down a little bit. He's hungry for this last season for him. Rashee Rice is back. They go ahead and they bring back Hollywood. So, I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed. Is he a guy that you're buying in Dynasty for that year 2 ascension, or is this kind of what we've seen is what we're going to get?
I think right now his price is a little bit steamed up because of the end of the season, but I actually do think this is going to be an ascending player. I was pretty much higher than most people on him coming out as far as like a complete route running type of player. His 4.2 40 really just turned him mentally into like a deep ball and a straight line speed guy. But I actually thought he had some game as far as intermediate route running and stop and go type of stuff. So I think I value him more than the general public does as far as his role. And I actually think Rashee Rice is actually even going to help out Xavier Worthy when it comes to this season projected. So like I talked about with Marv a little bit, I think if this team wants to take a step offensively that you're going to need to see out of them, they need Xavier Worthy to kind of fill that downfield role. And, you know, with some change happening with Kelsey's role, I think Rashee can kind of eat a little bit into him and his middle of the field production. And I don't think Worthy is too much affected with the type of role that they drafted him to play before Rashee's injury. So I'm not like moving him too far up or down than where I had him last year, kind of just operating as if it's what I projected for him when Rashee was healthy.
Yeah, if you want to pull up some Xavier Worthy trades here, I mean, what I really look at is the value of some of these. Like all of these players right now are polarizing, and this is what we like to talk about: is if you believe in one of these guys, you are going to extract some serious value because you're buying Xavier Worthy. As you see some of these trades, Al, you're buying him at his floor. I mean, I see Juwan Jennings in a 26-second or Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, that one doesn't make any sense. That's Worthy pretty easily for me.
And again, if you believe in the talent, I mean, we have an interesting one here, very similar to what we talked about before with a QB tier up. And this is going to be 2 guys that you've already talked about. So I'm interested to hear what you think here. But Marvin Harrison Jr., Jordan Love, and DeAndre Swift, or Jalen Hurts, Xavier Worthy, David Montgomery in the third. Throw the third out. So we'll just say Hurts, Worthy, Monty, or Marv, Love, and Swift.
This one's really close for me. I think I'm going to lean on the Jordan Love side. I do have Marvin Harrison significantly higher than Xavier Worthy when it comes to like their actual value in itself. But when you take into the Monty and Swift, that's a little different. It kind of depends on team need a little bit there, but overall, I think I do lean the Marvin Harrison side. What about you? Because that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I look at this as if Jalen Hurts is the final piece to the puzzle for me, I think I would do this. I do think Jordan Love is going to bounce back to his 2023. I did an article today where I have him as my top quarterback bounce back. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit more volatility there with Love and Marv, but I do think I would want that 26th third to be a second. I do think Montgomery is going to outscore Swift or be in the same range. He's safer than Swift. Swift could outscore him. Worthy, it's just a matter of then, to me, is it Worthy and Hurts or Love and Harrison? Harrison has that ability to go up there. So if I do trade for the Harrison side, I'm probably flipping Harrison for, multiple assets to try to put myself over the top. Here's an interesting one that I like when you talk about a 2024 rookie versus a 2025 rookie. This is in a standard 0.5 tight end premium, Tyler Warren or Xavier Worthy. And if you do this, I mean, how close is it for you?
In a standard 0.5, it's relatively close for me. But in a premium setting, I do have Warren probably slightly higher. I have Warren ahead of Loveland right now for tight end premium ranking wise.
Mm-hmm.
I just think kind of what I was just talking about with Worthy is the necessity of Tyler Warren for that team is just greater than Xavier Worthy on a week-to-week consistency point scoring basis. So as far as ceiling goes, I think he just has a higher total team output ceiling than Xavier Worthy does.
And we talked about this before with one of the other ones, AJ Brown or Xavier Worthy and a mid 26 first.
Well, as you can see, the Eagles plastered all over me. I'm going to not be biased, but this is pretty much the exact price that I would pay for AJ Brown, kind of what you said before. This is exactly what I'm looking to do, at all times in Dynasty, is a guy that's steamed up a bit because of situation and because of good play. And like I just said, I'm high on Worthy. So if I'm going to compete and I have my own first, this is where I'm moving it for AJ Brown.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about the 26 first is if it's in 24 and 25, if you messed up and you thought it was late and it became mid, it hurt, right? You gave up Quinshon Judkins, you gave up Brian Thomas Jr. In 2026, and I'm not trying to crap on the class, but if it falls anywhere between 4 and 8, I'm not worried. If it goes top 3, then you lost, right? But when you're treating those mid to late, I think that 4 to 8, there's about 8 guys right now that I feel like you're going to be you're not going to be crushed by, but there's 3 guys that you're going to feel bad. The next guy here, and we talk about these guys as being polarizing or guys that, ultimately when you look at them, they're guys that just don't have a lot of experience or that people don't quite trust. For me, Michael Penix Jr. has really shot up boards. I mean, he's going as the quarterback 20 right now. That's in the same range as Rome Odunze, Jared Goff, Chase Brown, Devonta Smith, above Dak Prescott, above Bryce Young. Everyone acts like because he was a rookie, he's still young. I mean, he's 25 years old, so he's a rookie last year. However, he was considerably older. You look at what he did in his 3 games, 775 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 INTs. So 225, 1-1. But when you look a little bit closer, there's some things that I really get excited about with this offense and with Michael Penix Jr. I mean, comparative to all the other rookies, in his big-time throw rate, 9.4% first. Better than Jaden, better than Caleb, better than Nix. Turnover-worthy plays, 1.7%. That is extremely low. The only quarterback who did better last year on that was Jaden Daniels, who was crazy efficient. Average depth of targets, 10.6 yards. He's slinging it out like that. He was number 1 among all quarterbacks with that. So the future is bright when you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you got Bijan Robinson, you got Darnell Mooney. Michael Penix Jr. is a very bizarre dynasty case because for me, he is a buy and a sell, and it's so different from league to league. I sold him for the 105 and 106 for multiple QB needy teams, and I took Travion Henderson. I took Cam Ward, who I prefer over Penix Jr., and I took Quinshon Judkins. And then in other leagues, people got to the 110. They wanted to get into the draft, and I bought Michael Penix for the 110. And it's like, yes, I prefer Michael Penix over Jackson Dart at this point. He's already established that he has a solid track record, has some potential. I'd love to get some trades here and kind of see where the market is because most people are either way too high or way too low on Michael Penix, which is what is, again, I love about Dynasty. I love about Smash Accept is now you got to go out there and check out all your leagues, right? Because I believe there's probably a league out there where you get him for the 201 or a pair of random 26 seconds. I also believe that there's leagues out there where someone's going to want an early 26 or 27 first. I've had people say that to me and I'm like, all right, bro, chill. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. So let's take a look at some of these trades with Michael Penix Jr. and then we'll get to your last guy here of 2025. 2024.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite sell the youth and sell the quarterback like push up at the position for like a wide receiver. So like I think I recently, actually it was a bit ago, I sold like him, Jordan Addison in a second for JSN and Geno Smith. So like
Yeah.
those are like the type of moves that I like to make where, yeah, he's QB 20, but you can still tier down to this year production plus an upgrade at wide receiver and that kind of thing. So he's one of my favorite sells when
Yeah,
it comes to
I
those
like to
moves.
take a guy that if I don't believe in him, like a Xavier Worthy or a Michael Penix Jr., and tear up off him, especially during rookie drafts. Like I traded Michael Penix Jr. in the 102 for Jalen Hurts. And I was like, the guy really was like believing in on that, right? And I think there's an area where you could have traded the 105 and Xavier Worthy to get yourself up to maybe not Drake London, but JSN, maybe Lad McConkey, and you can make these moves where on your rookie draft. So let's see some Penix trades.
Yeah, so like this one's super interesting right here in the middle. Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, and a third for Jalen Hurts, Ken Walker, and a first.
Oh, that's Jalen Hurts all day for me. I mean, like I look
Yeah,
at this. Jalen is over Bijan. Walker is probably equal to Penix, but when you look at those two, that's fairly close to me. Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Walker for Penix and Bijan is fairly close. The 1-2 swap, smash accept. Give me Jalen Hurts all day. And I
that's
think
exactly. Yeah,
I always want the better quarterback. As much as I love running backs like Bijan Robinson, I would probably take Hurts and Walker over Bijan and Penix straight up, just because I want that quarterback. The amount of points that Jalen Hurts puts up, I mean, I don't want to get on a Jalen Hurts pedestal here, but over the last several years, people keep trying to discount what he does, and it drives me crazy. You're an Eagles guy as well, but I mean, I posted this the other day, and you look at from 2022 to 2024. Number one in rushing fantasy points per game with 9.61. Your floor is 10 points before he throws the ball. Like, that's insane. Nobody does that. 1,995 yards rushing, that's third, and his game is more of the touchdowns. 42 rushing yards, that's number one, nobody close. And then everybody's like, well, Dad, but what about the passing? He led the NFL in highest deep ball passing percentage. He's shown that he can get it done through the air too. It's just we need to value him closer to Allen, Lamar, and Daniels than what we do. Like there's a gap there, and I've seen him go like 107 in startups. Just stop trying to find warts with Jalen Hurts. I'm off my soapbox. Let's go back to Michael Penix.
and just to go back to that trade real quick, that's a 4-point passing touchdown. So Hurts is even more valuable in that
And
format.
Penix is even less
And
valuable because he's a
yeah,
statue back
exactly.
there.
And just like the general thought of trading Bijan, I know it hurts everyone's soul, but like this is what you can get for Bijan Robinson right now. And to me, that's why like I'm down to sell running backs with this type of weight is because you can get a first and players that are going to help you over the next 2 years. So I love that one. This one right here is interesting. It's a big tier up here. It's Michael Penix 2025 first and 2027 first. Let's make them both mid for Lamar Jackson and Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp shouldn't be in this deal yet. I even Lamar Jackson, I'm not doing it. Like I understand rebuilding and tearing down, but if I do that, I'm doing 227 first plus JJ McCarthy or Trevor Lawrence or someone I believe a little bit more in. Like I would easily pay that for those type of players or even a Jordan Love. Like I feel like the 227 first gap between Lamar and everybody else, you could get Kyler Murray. Like you could get something that's going to still give you production. I almost think Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and Josh Allen are the only three players worth of 4 firsts to me. Like I say they're worth 3.5, but if you want them off my team, you better bring 4. And Michael Penix Jr. is not worth 2 firsts.
Right. So like, yeah, if you're looking at Penix like a late one, and then if even one of the 2 firsts have a chance to be late, then we're already out of like my wheelhouse for what I can get for Lamar right now. I need a little more guarantee is kind of how I look at it when I sell Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I agree.
So a couple of these are a bit more interesting. Like Jaden Reed, Aaron Rodgers, and a first for Michael Penix, Charbonnet, and a third. So this is
So
kind of what I was talking about earlier, like
that I would take,
capitalizing on
actually.
his youth.
See, that I would take on, because I mean, it really depends on what that first looks like. But Charbonnet, I don't think people realize that Kenneth Walker's in a contract year, and given his injury history, Zach Charbonnet has been a RB1 when Kenneth Walker is out. I know we're about to do another show that I'm going to highlight Zach Charbonnet, but like for me, I mean, there's not a huge gap between what we're looking at here. Aaron Rodgers is someone that I'm trying to use to tier up. So if this is a late pick, I want the Penix side. If it's mid, give me the pick. If it's early, it's sure as heck the pick.
Yep, I agree with you there. And then the last one here, one that I like personally pretty easily, and something that league dependently you could probably get done or at least close to it, is Michael Penix in a second for, let's just call it Justin Herbert straight up.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, I think the gap between them is truly closer to a mid first, especially in 2026.
I was going to say, if it was a late first, you're still taking Herbert there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem. I love tearing up off of Penix. I mean, I'm going to pull up I didn't throw this up there earlier, but I'm going to throw up my Patreon rankings there. Guys, right now, patreon.com/smash accept. You can join anywhere from $5 to $20 per month. One of the best investments you can make for Dynasty and Fantasy. And right now, you can get that at 50% off using Al's code at Calo50. He has Kalo's Corner in there. He has his own section. I put a section in there today for your Substack. You're getting great content, not just from Snoog and myself, but Al as well. And Al, while I pull up some of those, I mean, why don't you tell everybody like what they're going to find from your end? I mean, they already know from me. I'm on here all the time telling them what kind of content, but what do they get in your room?
Yeah, so with these guys pushing out great like equivalent value type work, a lot of people in my corner come over just to shoot trades at me. They kind of want to know what they should do in a tear down from a player and that kind of thing. And these guys provide really good equivalents. But as far as the market goes, that's kind of what we're focused on over there. Is there's peaks and valleys throughout Dynasty, and that's really where you extract value and take advantage. And that's why it's so fun. Is there's never a downtime. These players are always going up or down regardless of what's happening. So over in my corner and everybody else is in there, we're always just talking about how can we move up or down to kind of make our team better. If we're going in a rebuild direction, what type of return are we looking for? If we're going to compete, what type of return are we looking for? So just always talking shop, always with the market up and down, and always locked in.
Yeah, and it's not a cookie cutter approach, right? Like we know right now, I say Michael Penix Jr. is worth the equivalent of the 107. I think that's kind of where he's at, 107, 108. I would gladly trade a second to get to that tier up. And that tier up for me is Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, JJ McCarthy, Cam Ward, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence. I'd pay a second to get to any of them just because the age isn't that much difference and you're getting a little bit more of a stable floor. I'd pay a first to get up to Knicks, Stroud, or Love. I feel like just being able to trade that mid to late first gets you in a secure position that you would have a quarterback that you can trust. We talk about trust situations. We talk about players that, they got hyped up in 2024 because it was such a down running back class. 2025, 2026, you're going to get elite running backs. The one guy that you can really, you love him or you hate him. A lot of people are seeing 69 touches, 350 yards, 1 touchdown. That's a down year. Trey Benson behind a 31-year-old James Conner right now. Is Trey Benson the heir apparent, and should we be buying at this Dynasty RB 34 price?
Yeah, I think that he is. And I think really just this is like the grossest buy that I talk about like consistently is just it's so easy to take advantage of such like an easily laid out situation here. So like James Conner had a phenomenal season. We always talk about him as like a great competitor or contender buy. So he'll always be a buy just until he retires. We're always just going to have guys like that that can consistently like contribute to our winning. But Trey Benson is, like I said before, when talking about Marv, they didn't do anything to change their outlook for this season. He is going to have no choice but to play a bigger role this year. And they're already talking about him looking more explosive. They keep saying they have 2 RB1s, which they don't have to say that. Like
Yeah.
Plenty of teams don't talk about their backup running back at all when they talk about their plans for the season.
Mhm.
So don't buy all the coach speak, but this is a player that has to have a role if they want James Conner to continue to produce and if they want their team to kind of take a step forward when it comes to explosive plays, which is what this team's looking for.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy 4.40. He can fly. He's got great athleticism. What I saw on college tape was someone that could be explosive and hit the hole with conviction. What I saw the first half of the season was a timid running back who didn't want to make mistakes. And there's a big difference between the NFL and college, and playing hungry versus playing to not make a mistake. I've coached high school baseball and basketball, and it's like the biggest thing that I teach everybody is always be confident and know that you're gonna make that play, right? Now I feel like for him, he was very timid, which is kind of bizarre, and you can't win in the NFL being timid. First one here in a standard half point PPR: Trey Benson or Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, this is his price, and Jawan Jennings is a player that, like, if you have him on your team, I'm pretty much guaranteeing he's not like a staple that you like desperately need.
He
So
shouldn't be.
the upside is just so much. Yeah, right. So the upside is just so much higher for Trey Benson. So this is something I'm definitely willing to do.
Yeah, I think that's the way. And the other one I see on here, another straight up. You talk about. I always talk about. I call my running backs insurance running backs like this. I don't use the term handcuff because it's like a lottery ticket. There's also insurance quarterbacks that are lottery tickets, and the other one is Jalen Milroe. So if you had to choose, and we'll just say that it's at 212 in your rookie draft. I mean, do you want Milroe or do you want to trade and get Trey Benson?
This one's actually really tough because I do like Milroe, but I'm going to take Trey Benson here. I actually just feel like the path to production to, at the very least, get more value back in this year is with Trey Benson. So
Mhm.
what I mean by that is it's pretty easy path in my eyes to get a mid-second for Trey Benson and re-roll. So to me, if I don't see a value change, I could see both these guys turning into less. But I do think overall, Milroe is just an upside play. So
Mhm.
I like that trade a lot as far as fairness goes. But I'll take Trey Benson here because I see a clear path.
There's a couple other interesting ones. I mean, I see Cedric Tillman straight up for Benson. I feel like this is kind of a pick your poison on who you think has the most upside. How about Jonnu Smith and a 26 second for Trey Benson and a 26 third?
Yeah, and this is it shouldn't mean a lot, but these are the type of trades that I do in Dynasty is like I just get Trey Benson for, let's call it like an 8 spot like move down in a rookie draft. Like that means virtually nothing to me.
Mhm.
There's always a way that I can move back up into the second round. That's quite easy to do. It's not like
I
moving up in
agree.
the first round.
I
So it's
agree.
just a free Trey Benson. And if I can just add Trey Benson to my team, of course I'm going to do that.
Yeah, and I think Trey Benson's an interesting one. I like to get him thrown into deals. I like to get him, when I have my veterans, for instance, like James Conner or Joe Mixon, or guys that are little bit long in the tooth. Trade one of them in a second and get Benson in a first. You just insulate, you give yourself another chance. Because I could tell myself a narrative. And a lot of these guys, you have to tell yourself a narrative one way or another. Like, what do I believe in here? I could tell myself a narrative where James Conner gets hurt week 2 and Trey Benson is a borderline RB1, like a top 15 running back because of the usage that he would potentially get there. You really got
Yeah,
to
then you
tell
get a
yourself.
first. Then you
Exactly.
get a first, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The guy that you got to really tell yourself a narrative on is Keon Coleman. And you're from the Buffalo area. I love the Buffalo Bills. We wanted to see it right off the bat. When you saw him in college, like the pick should have been Xavier Worthy for the Bills. They traded, they flipped it. Josh Allen wanted Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman was not a guy that gets a lot of separation, right? He's someone that is great hands, someone that's going to have to win at the catch point. I think Josh Allen was going to throw to him, and he kind of struggled out the gate. Didn't play in a full-time role. Week 7 and 8 played completely full-time as the wide receiver. He had 14.5 fantasy points in week 7, 15.5 in week 8. Both of those were good to be wide receiver 13 for the week. Week 9, he gets the injury. Then he's out the next 4 weeks. So I feel like he was a raw prospect coming in. It took some time to get the ball rolling. Then all of a sudden he starts to to understand it a little bit. He starts to get, find his role in this offense. Week 7, week 8, he pops. Week 9, he gets injured, and then it's all, it's out. If there's an opportunity, an ambiguous wide receiver room to win with an elite quarterback, it's the Buffalo Bills offense. But last year, just 29 receptions, 556 yards, 4 touchdowns. I can tell myself a story where he catches 70 for 1,010. I can tell that. I could also see a scenario where it's 50, 700, 4 again, and now his value is nothing. What I really like about it, and we talk about this again with the Patreon, is we talk about these guys' values. And Trey Benson is someone that's valued right now. It's a 212, 301. Keon Coleman's another guy that's now in the late second. You were buying him for an early second because of his scenario where he was at. I think he becomes a value again. And I want to insulate. I'm not going to pay up. I'm not going to pay a random first, or I'm not going to pay a pick for Keon Coleman. But if I can tier up or tier down, I think there's a lot of opportunities with Keon.
I think he's like pretty free right now is the thing.
Almost. I couldn't.
Yeah. And
I tried to get a second for him on the one team that I have that's contending. Nobody would even give a second. Like there was no interest. I went to all 12 teams, so like when that happens out, I sometimes go the other way. And I'm like, if there's no interest in this player, then I'm going to get him for free. So I'm going to go buy him somewhere.
Yeah, I'll definitely like throw 2/3 at someone for Keon Coleman and have them be definitely happy to take that. The thing with him is, it was said before the season last year that he just doesn't project as like a winning X receiver off the rip. So his usage was like kind of how I didn't want to see Marvin Harrison get used, but kind of the same trajectory where it's like they just kind of threw him out there on the outside and was like, go win contested catches. And that was like his role. And that's just not conducive to fantasy at all. So that's why you're going to see a little bit of dip. But I do think he was playing hurt for a while. And I do think if they do give him more slot snaps and kind of use him as a big target, I think they didn't do enough in the pass game to just not use him. So there's definitely a buying opportunity here.
And the trades that I'm seeing, and I know we're getting a little bit long for some of the listeners, but I mean, like a 28 second. Okay, 2 years from now, sure, I could see taking a shot at that. I see one here where it's this is kind of Will Howard and Travis Etienne. I would roll the dice there if I didn't need the running back. I think Etienne could bounce back. I see other ones here where it's Keon and Kincaid for Mike Evans. Like that's almost like when you do a trade where you get it, like you're almost getting yourself a free Keon Coleman. And I think that's the play here is you try to work him in where it's like a sweetener. And guys like him and Xavier Leggett are so difficult to trade. It almost makes me think, Romeo Doubs straight up for Keon Coleman. What upside is Romeo Doubs giving you? Like, you don't want a wide receiver 6 who gives you little to no upside. You don't want a wide receiver that can give you 8 points a game. You want a wide receiver 6 that's a Jalen McMillan, a Keon Coleman, if something happens, they can really pop off. I mean, I see Keon Coleman for Jalen Hyatt and 2/4. What? Huh?
Yeah.
Who? What? Like make an offer like that. I mean, Rashid Shaheed straight up. I'm seeing Troy Franklin and a pair of thirds. Why not? Like Keon Coleman and a first for Tyreek Hill. Everybody right now is getting to the point where they're willing to pay a first for Tyreek Hill. Get Keon Coleman thrown onto that deal. That's how you win in Dynasty. That's how you insulate. Because next year, the first is worth more than Tyreek, and Keon Coleman is free. If he gains any value, you win. I love this move. This has been a fun show. Again, Al's been doing great things over in the Discord. Use code Calo for 50% off your first month. You will not regret it. Honestly, we have been growing incrementally every single month. It's just, if you use this code on the base tier, it's $2.50. You're paying 10 cents a day just to give it a shot. So why not? But guys, thanks again for tuning in and enjoy the process. And you can find that